I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast, powered by PrizePicks. And today, powered by a very, very special guest, friend of the show. It is JP Acosta from SB Nation, here to talk about all things Patriots, a head coach ranking he did with Greg Rosenthal earlier this week that I threw some Patriots fans into a tizzy about, so we want to get your thoughts on that. We'll talk Pat's draft as well, because JP obviously does a great job covering the NFL draft over at SB Nation. And then he's going to stick around and answer some of your questions from our mailbag. So JP, thanks so much for joining us. We always appreciate your time. Before we get into it, new question for all our guests, non-football related, to ease things into it. Are you watching any shows recently? I know outside of your work. What's your favorite show you're watching right now? And is there anything you can potentially put us on to?
Ooh, okay. So, as most people know, big anime fan. I have been watching the most recent episodes of One Piece, which you don't have to get into it. We're already at like 1,100 episodes.
Okay, yeah,
like,
God
damn.
damn.
It's been going since the 90s. If you don't hop on, you don't have to. Fire Force is in their final season, so I've been watching that a lot. And then there's this anime called Windbreaker, where it's literally a bunch of high schoolers who are in a gang and they go and beat people up. No superpowers, no nothing. They just be throwing hands. And I'm like, where are the teachers at? Y'all ain't got no school board. Every time they're in their school, there are no teachers. There's like graffiti on the walls. Where's the school board at? Where are their parents?
As someone who grew up in Queens, New York, I feel like that would be something that I would probably have some understanding of. Like, Queens public schools are not the absolute best. I got to ask you, though. I have a best friend who loves One Piece. Like, if you watch anime, you pretty much love One Piece. But it is so long. So as someone who is unfamiliar, how do I start? Like, is it literally just you start biting away at the apple? Is there something I need to skip so I get a good feel? Like, help sell me, because I want to watch the live action show too.
Okay, so you have to start from the first episode because you build out the crew throughout the entire show. But there are arcs, there are worlds where you can skip. So what I did was, there's this great website where you can just it'll tell you which episodes are filler and which ones aren't. If you want to skip the filler, go straight to the important stuff, completely fair, because that's what I did to catch up. The rubber really hits the road when we get to Impel Down and Marineford, which is called the War of the Best, which means the Marines and the pirates end up fighting in a giant war. And so that's where the story really kicks up and turns up another notch. So you got to get there, but the thing is, you got to get there to actually really feel it.
So it sounds like Japanese Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm down.
Yeah, pretty much. The world building is amazing. The character design's awesome. I initially was a One Piece hater because I'm not watching all that, and then I watched it. I'm like, I'm gonna watch all of this.
Okay, all right, I'm sold. All right, I might watch my first one tonight. We'll see.
The anime world is unfortunately all gibberish to me. So on that note, let's get.
It was in smile and nod mode.
it was smile and nod, and pull up the tweet of Greg's rankings for you guys for the NFL coaches, because that was. Let's get to something I know and understand, which is this head coach ranking. JP, you were on the NFL Daily Podcast with Greg Rosenthal and ranked the NFL's head coaches that are not first-time NFL head coaches, and had Mike Vrabel ranked 18th. Now, looking at the head coaches in front of them, it's not that far-fetched, and I half jokingly put one of my classic SpongeBob memes with Mr. Krabs being like, "What is this?" Doing his eye thing. But you look at, your Andy Reid's, your Sean McVays, even guys like Matt LaFleur, Mike Tomlin being ranked ahead of them. That makes sense to me. Where it kind of hit a snag, frankly, was just being behind Mike McDaniel. I thought Vrabel's done a little bit more in this league, but I kind of want to give you the floor as to not only why you guys had him ranked at number 18, but also just what your thoughts on Vrabel's tenure in New England in general has been over these first, 5-6 months of his return to Foxborough.
So when Greg and I were doing this, the overall takeaway I had was that it's really tough to rank these guys because all of them are at least like good coaches.
Totally.
Like overall, I think Mike Vrabel is a good coach. I think some of the things that he did when it comes to game management does not get talked about a lot because he's not the analytics. He's not the offensive genius. He's kind of gets billed as like, yeah, he gets billed as the meathead coach, but he's so smart when it comes to game management that I think it deserves a lot of credit. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for getting the Titans to where they were. I think the reason I had him at 18th was because of the way it ended in Tennessee, which you can attribute that to ownership, GM not being in alignment with Mike Vrabel. And we talked about on the podcast, if you hire Mike Vrabel, you have to be in alignment with what he wants. It is the Mike Vrabel way. And I think when I was doing the rankings, I was thinking of it as if I were an expansion team, which coach would I want to be my coach for the season or the seasons going forward? I went with McDaniel, largely because he had the play caller. I know what I'm going to get. Fair. And I think there's some aspects of Vrabel where I worry a little bit about the play call hires outside of, he had Matt LaFleur there. Arthur Smith was a good hire. And then everything kind of fell off a cliff. But I really am curious to see how he does after his stint outside of head coaching with the Browns, what he learned, what he gained. I actually think that the offensive coordinator hire, Josh McDaniels, I think that works for this team and what they want to be. And I'm actually very intrigued by what Vrabel has talked about and what he's discussed about his offensive philosophy and the mindset he wants for this team going into 2025, especially with where the NFL is as a whole schematically on the offensive side of the ball. So we could come back to this next year and Mike Vrabel shoots all the way up near the top 10 or in the top 10. That wouldn't surprise me at all. It's just, for me, it's kind of hedging for, what happened at the end of Tennessee. So I think he's one of those guys where I can say like he is a good coach. And I think once you get to guys like coach number 18 through like 22, it's like these are all good to very good coaches.
And this is why I love bringing on guys who have the national perspective, because it's very different than it is in our bubble. Huh?
I was just thinking that. Like it to have the overarching 30,000 foot view of not just what's going on in Patriot land, but kind of all across the board. It brings in such a better perspective than some of the other people we bring on. So sorry, continue. But I was thinking the same exact thing.
And I know Greg also mentioned like he didn't really get along with the people around him. And like, there's the whole thing where I know with Carthon, like his daughter was mad that they fired Mike Vrabel. She's like, what are you doing? Like, so there's some of that. But the perception of Mike Vrabel is that, there might be some, tension in the front office if guys don't really necessarily get along with him. He does have the track record of not necessarily always finding the best offensive coordinators if he didn't just stumble into them. So from your perspective, this is why it makes sense. Because if you are drafting a coach for team, not for the New England Patriots, I could totally see you going with a lot of these other guys over Mike Vrabel, especially given, if he's just the head coach of a team, he doesn't necessarily have Josh McDaniels. So like you said, with the guys who both are head coaches and call plays, you're getting that advantage no matter what team he goes to. But in this situation where he is with the Patriots, you got Josh McDaniels. It's going to be Vrabel's offense, but that when it comes to the details, how it's taught, how his vision is executed, there's not going to be a whole lot of problems. And it's a guy who he's probably not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And the Patriots are obviously that was a big question for even us. What's this front office going to do? Are they going to do well in free agency? They did. Awesome. But what about the draft? Whole different beast. Then they do a pretty good job, unanimously ace it. But even still, we don't know what next year is going to look like or the next year. So as jarring as it was to be like, whoa, like Vrabel's not in the top half of the league, that feels a little nuts. And sure, I could disagree with some of them. That's the point of these lists. But at the same time, it is good perspective that the Patriots kind of do just have created a good situation, or Vrabel rather has created a good situation around himself by adding like-minded people who want to execute his vision and also filling the roster with guys who fit his, perspective. And now he doesn't have to get mad at, Elliott Wolf because he traded away AJ Brown, that would piss me off too. It would sour my relationships, but it's a good environment. But I also see how Mike Vrabel outside of it might not seem like as good of a fit. And it's why he wasn't in the league last year.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for Mike Vrabel, I remember it went viral early in the offseason where he was talking about the split between the run and the pass and wanting to run the football. And some of the stuff he talked about with yards after the catch, and everybody got all up in arms, like, oh my God, they're not going to let Drake May cook. And I I laughed at it because we just saw the Chargers do that same thing, and Justin Herbert, they made the playoffs. They were 11-6 and made the playoffs. But I think the thing for Vrabel, like you said, is everybody is in lockstep. It is Mike Vrabel's offense. Josh McDaniels is providing some of the fine tuning behind it, and everything that you see and what we think of a Josh McDaniels offense feels very similar to what Mike Vrabel wants to be. They're going to be in a lot bigger personnel. You're going to be a lot more physical up front. You're going to get more after the catch, like what Vrabel said. So I'm curious to see how it goes, especially with such a young team offensively. Like there's a lot of room for this to not work early in the Vrabel tenure, but this isn't a one-year fix. And I think Vrabel and the Patriots knew this when they brought him back into the fold. This isn't going to be something that you turn around in 1 year. If they do, more power to him. But this team is so young and still has such a massive room for growth that we could be talking about Mike Vrabel in a completely different category in terms of coaches in the NFL in the next 2-3 years, because this team is going to grow along with him.
And go Taylor actually first.
Just really quick, because the youth is big, and that's why like last year I gave so many caveats for the Patriots winning like 10 games. Because I'm saying, yeah, if 3 of your young guys are playing like solid football, not even great, but if they're on the field and they're not liabilities every play, then I think you can upset expectation. And this year, I think they actually got the veterans where the young guys don't have to produce. We're like, so in a world where, and I know this is asking a lot, but in a world where maybe Stephon Diggs is on PUP for the first 4 weeks, he's back by October. Maybe if you have to, like Kendrick Bourne or Matt Collins are also providing another veteran presence. And on the offensive line, Garrett Bradbury, worst case scenario, a Wes Schweitzer or a Cole Strange, obviously not ideal necessarily, but right side, you got Nwenu and Morgan Moses. What does that team look like for you? And where even if the young guys do take a while, you're at least fielding guys who've been on an NFL field and produced before.
I think you're getting a high floor team. This team is always going to, they might not win, but they're going to make games interesting. They're going to make games close. And I think that competitive, I'm not going to say bad, but a competitive team, like there's a difference between being bad and being uncompetitive. As a Jaguars fan, I have seen a lot of non-competitive teams. I think the Patriots, to start off the season last year, they were competitive, but then the depth got trashed. Everything kind of fell apart. But with what Vrabel has done is he's raised the floor of this team through the veterans, like you said. And now all you need are just a few impact plays from your young guys as they continue to grow. You're going to insert Will Campbell into the left side, regardless of whether that's at tackle or guard. Impact player right there. All you need is a few splash plays from Travion Henderson, a mix of Kyle Williams here and there, some impact from Braden Swinson as a pass rusher on third downs. All you need are those, just some of the it's like cooking. You only need a little bit of the flair to really
seasoning.
you need a little seasoning to make it pop. So I think with where the young guys are, you've given them the ability to kind of grow as the season goes along. And with a more established offensive line in front of Drake Maye, you'll see a whole lot more growth out of Maye. And he should hopefully be able to bring guys up to the caliber that he plays at, because he sort of did that last season. And now you have better guys around him. If Diggs comes back and can be the separator that he was in Houston before his injury, and that as he was his entire career, you now have an offense again with layers. And that's the biggest thing that the Patriots really needed last year, was they didn't have any layers to the offense. So now you have Diggs kind of as a short to intermediate guy, Jalen Polk as, I guess you call him like a power slot, like the people's number 2 receiver. Kyle Williams can be the separator downfield. And then you just round out the rest of the room with the guys who are more complementary. So I'm excited to see where they go. Like I said, they have a high floor, but the ceiling is going to be impacted by which one of those offensive skill rookies can make the biggest impact early.
Absolutely.
So I want to get your thoughts on those guys, but just to kind of close the loop on the coaches thing and kind of where, like, I guess where he ranks. Where obviously I'm glad we had you on to talk about it, but looking at where he is at like 18 on this list, and kind of me being like, or even Taylor being like, well, that does seem kind of low. maybe we have too much like, oh, this is just going to work because we saw what Vrabel did in Tennessee. But the end of his tenure there, frankly, like you said, wasn't great. And there were some question marks. And can he transcend and blah, blah, blah. So the last thing we saw of Mike Vrabel as a head coach is somebody who got fired. He now takes over a 4-13 team. We don't know that he's going to get back to being that 12-4 1 seed top 10 coach that he once was. So giving him the 18th slot really isn't as bad as it was when I just looked at a graphic. Taylor went through a graphic versus actually talking on a podcast a couple weeks ago with his prediction on the Patriots. So he knows this world all too well. And so I agree. I think he does still have a lot to prove, even though he has proven in the past that he can be a relatively successful head coach. You do also cover the NFL draft or at length for SB Nation. So I want to get your thoughts on this Patriots draft class. Obviously, we know Will Campbell off the top. You mentioned him a bit. You mentioned some of those skill guys as well. Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson. I think you had said when we had you on before day 2 on that Friday that the Patriots need speed on offense. It looks like they've added it. So what are your thoughts on their class as a whole? And I know you kind of just gave a couple high-level thoughts, but what can they bring to the offense and how can they elevate this team, not just in 2025, but also moving forward?
The first thing I thought when I saw their day 2 picks, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is they are going to bring juice to the offensive room. And that's something, again, with what Mike Vrabel has said about yards after the catch and be explosive after the ball is in your hands. It makes playing offense so much easier when you can dump the ball off to a running back behind the line of scrimmage and he ends up getting 6 yards on first down. You go from 2nd and 9 to 2nd and 4. When you're able to take a short pass to a receiver and get 8 yards instead of 4 yards, that makes offense so much easier. You're not putting everything on your young quarterback to try and will this team down the field with superhuman throws every play. I talk about it a lot when it comes to margin of error for young quarterbacks and young offenses. You have to try and widen the margin for error for a quarterback. Every throw doesn't have to be perfect. Like I hate to use him as an example because he's always the example in this scenario. Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers offense has the biggest margin for error I think I've seen in the NFL ever, because you have so many guys who can win after the catch. They make offense a lot easier on your young quarterback as he continues to grow, and as those passes that are a little less accurate right now become more accurate, the margin for error widens even more. So I think with what they did first with Travion Henderson, who I knew was going to be a Mike Vrabel favorite just because of how he blocks, the effort that he gives in all facets of the game. And it sort of signals to me that this is going to be a gap scheme team. Travion Henderson isn't the best at zone runs. I think he's kind of an upright runner. Yeah. And like the vision sort of comes and goes in zone runs. But if you give him a lane and where he needs to go, he goes from 0 to 60 in an instant. So I think having that explosiveness in the backfield is a great compliment to Ramondre Stevenson, who is sort of the singles and doubles. Now you have your home run hitter. And I think Kyle Williams, I talked about a lot on the pre-day 2 show. I was like Jalen Noel, because of the separation and the ability to win downfield. Kyle Williams separates and can win downfield. And I think that's something that, again, complements what they've done in that offensive room. So it really makes sense for Williams to be the one to be the explosive guy downfield. Like I said, now you have layers in the offense. You have Stephon Diggs working short to intermediate because you don't need him to run downfield, right? Especially coming off a torn ACL, being 30, 31. You don't need him to do everything. He's sort of aging gracefully into a 1B. But now you need somebody to step up and become the 1A, or just surround them with a bunch of really good 2s. And I think that's where the Patriots are going for now, as they still add to that receiver room. Williams can be the guy who creates some of that explosiveness downfield, and he also gives someone for Drake Maye to get the ball to quickly. Easy, instant separator. That's something that stood out at Washington State, was just the tempo and the pacing that he runs his routes with. He's always going to be open. I think my biggest issue with him was the drop numbers were a little scary, which is why I was like, okay, I don't want this to end up being like Dontavion Wicks again. But I think with where you're going to ask him, what are you going to ask him to do in New England? it's gonna iron itself out. And plus, I think his drop rate has lowered since he got into college. So he's grown in that area. I'm really excited about what they've done in terms of their offensive skill position on day 2. They just got faster. They really need to get faster.
And Kyle Williams is not a perfect product. Like, there's a reason he went in the 3rd round. The reason his hands aren't great, they're tiny. He's got like 9-inch hands. And if you watch him catch, like, I think his actual reception numbers are twice what they actually are because of how many times he double caught the ball. But at the same time, he's not, and he wins more than you'd expect for a wiry guy. Like, usually you would say, all right, you do not want him catching contested passes. He'll do it. Like, he'll surprisingly go up and like put whatever amount of body he has and try to put it between himself and the defender. But also what I love about these guys, on top of everything that you're getting physically, and we get a little bit more insight into this once they're drafted and we get to talk to them and hear about them, is the people they got. Because last year, you're kind of hoping that a Javon Baker and a Jalen Polk are able to break out. And Polk is a guy where he didn't have a whole like long track record of success, and obviously was known as an outstanding person, but I think the confidence was a big part of that. And then Javon Baker, all the talent in the world, but another guy who just couldn't really put it together. Kyle Williams, all you hear about is the attention to detail. People love him in the program. Like, he's always working and all that. And even yesterday, we saw on the field, he ran a route the wrong way, was taught how to do it better, did it, and then got some praise from the coaches, and stayed late with Epton Chisholm, like catching balls on the jugs machine. So adding him as a receiver, and then Travion Henderson, like we all know, the guy was okay with Quinshon Judkins being added because he's selfless. Everyone in the Ohio State program raved about what kind of person he was as well. So not only are you adding the explosiveness this offense desperately needed, but a level of maturity among those young players that it feels like was really, really missing last season, and maybe gives them more of an opportunity and upside to be able to contribute this year.
Yeah, and with Henderson, he was one of those guys who I thought should have came out last year. I thought he was going to enter the draft in 2024, but he's one of those groups of Ohio State seniors who came back looking to win a championship. He took a smaller role, like you said, with Judkins, and that selflessness, that leadership is something everybody at Ohio State raves about with Henderson. So like you said, you're getting a great person as well as a guy who can take every pass or take every run and make it be a home run.
All right, we want to answer some of these mailbag questions with the JP. We also want to get your thoughts on the tush push being passed today as well. I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on that. But first, we got to take a break for a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And it's not just the regular season, it's the postseason as well. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. That's right. Starting with the play-in round, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Takes to Tickets sweepstakes, which can get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. You think Anthony Edwards will get more than 24 points? You think Jason Tatum will have more than 35? Cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. And all you got to do is download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Shout out to Prize Picks. I need to make a new read. I mentioned Jason Tatum. RIP to my man's Achilles. Too bad. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully Celtics can turn things around. I do want to also add here, speaking of the Celtics and speaking of Patriots and Patriots Daily, subscribe here to Patriots Press Pass as well. I want to get as many people on the channel here as possible, and it's not just Patriots Daily. It's Pat's Interference with Andrew Callahan. Myself and Taylor were just on there. That episode will drop later on this week. We got plenty of good stuff here as well. Greg Bedard Pod, Pat's Beat, Pat and Matt at Night, etc. So we got our whole crew here. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass here as well. I do want to do mailbag. I do want to do tush push. But JP, I did see you tweeting last night about our old friend. I know Taylor's not as big of a hockey guy, but Brad Marchand getting into it. Fighting with the Carolina Hurricanes last night in that dominant Florida Panthers win. How much of a hockey guy are you, or are you a Florida Panthers? I don't want to say bandwagon. I don't want to put that on you, but are you a playoff guy, or are you a true hockey fan down there?
So I'm just getting into hockey. I didn't really grow up with like hockey being like a thing that I watched in sports. So it took me kind of I actually say it all the time when my friends, when I went to Northwestern, we went to a hockey game. I think it was Blackhawks Bruins. And I watched, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like, what have I been missing out on? So I've tried to keep up. I've tried to keep up with the Panthers. I'm definitely more of a playoff guy because it's just tough to keep up with the games. But playoff hockey is diabolical work. It is insane how quickly everything moves. So I'm still trying to keep up with it. I'm still trying to learn everything I can about hockey because it is a sport that I genuinely want to get into and learn more about so I can have smarter conversations about it other than, yeah, hit that guy really hard.
Hell yeah. No,
JP is so much better than me. I watch the Patriots and I hang out with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I got into soccer during the pandemic, partially because I played FIFA and I was like, this is incredible. So now I'm learning about soccer and it's great at the same time as learning about hockey because it's kind of the same, like sort of similar. So I'm just trying to learn everything about everything.
I need to be more.
Taylor, do you know who Brad Marchand is?
He's a coach.
That's perfect. No, longtime Boston Bruin, won the Stanley Cup with them in 2011. Bruins traded him this offseason to the Peas, the Florida Panthers, who won the Stanley Cup last year. Now he's in there. Now he's with them in Florida making another cup run. And he gets – I don't want to call him a dirty player. I think anyone who's away from him would call him a dirty player when he's on your team.
Like Jules?
He's an instigator. Yeah, Jules, but like more like an instigator. I'll get in your face. I'll drop the gloves, etc. So
I will say it like this: as someone who recently, like I said, got into hockey, I did not like Brad Marchand until he got onto the Panthers. I was like, oh, this guy rules.
Yeah, 100%. So he got into it last night with a player, and they won the game. They're up 1-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. But let's get back to football. We'll do football here, and I know we do. I keep pushing off the mailbag a bit, but the tush push pass today, a league-wide thing. You instantly smiled. So talk to me about your thoughts on the tush push. Did you think if they banned it, it would have been bad for football? Is it a part of the game? What are your thoughts on this play that has become so controversial?
My thoughts for all the teams that want to ban the tush push because they cannot stop it. I have one solution for you to stop it. I would go and find the team workout facility, the team gym, go to the squat rack, get the bar, put 4 to 5 45-pound plates on each bar, on each side, and just squat until you're tired. It's really just like you're mad at the Eagles for figuring out a play that they're better at than you because they lift more than you. You want to stop the tush push, lift bigger weights. That's really it. And I think on a much different level, it is really weird that we kind of want to ban the Eagles from doing it because they got too good at it. Because, like, can you imagine the NBA banning the sky hook because only Kareem could do it? Can we imagine the NBA like banning Michael Jordan from shooting fadeaway jumpers because he was the only one good at doing it? And it's not even that the Eagles are the only team that's great at doing the tush push. The Bills had like a over 80% success rate doing the tush push last season, and they were one of the teams that wanted to ban it. So they can kind of save the player health, player safety. The NFL's never cared about health.
We know.
And if they really want to ban things that they cannot legislate, ban the RPO. That is where I start. That is where real football needs. That's where football needs to go. We need to start banning RPOs.
RPOs are kind of an easy target too. We had that. What was that like 6 years ago? I feel like Jerry Rice was like, "It's a gimmick, get it out of the game."
Yeah.
But like in a league where they also banned press coverage downfield because Peyton Manning couldn't win in the cold against a good defense. Like, yeah, I was genuinely surprised that this didn't get banned because the NFL does love to take things out that hurt their viewership, and obviously it just doesn't feel fair to them when there's not enough parity. But I really hate going on league rants because I start to slip out of my professionalism, but I agree, JP. It was ridiculous that they even can seriously consider banning it.
It's insane that they can go, the tush push isn't an aesthetically cool looking play. You know what's cool? Winning football games.
Mhm.
That's what I
Super Bowl
like.
titles,
That's what I
baby.
think is cool. Winning Super Bowls with the tush push. Winning a lot of games using that play is super effective. Nick Sirianni has said they treat 1st and 10 like 1st and 9. You only got to get 9 yards in 3 plays. You can just tush push. They have found their advantage. They have found the one thing that they are better at than everybody else. Now it's on the other teams to try and stop it, or teams have gotten creative with trying to mimic the same thing. The Ravens put Mark Andrews behind the center and tush push him. We've seen teams put tight ends and running backs under center to tush push him. And nobody bats an eye at it. It is just because the Eagles do it 5 times a game because they lift more than you. I say, instead of going to legislation for it, go squat, go deadlift, eat your mini wheats.
Get a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who's been in the weight room since he could walk.
Get a quarterback who lifts with the linemen. That's what I think you should do.
Well, that's the thing with making it, and then we'll move on. Like making it they found their advantage, right? So even if your starting quarterback doesn't squat 220, 220, 420, 500. Get a backup quarterback who could squat that much. Get your Taysom Hill and make him your automatic QB sneak guy. Like there's ways to do this where you don't just need to try and ban it. Just work harder than the other team. So exactly. I like the take. I never thought it should have been banned. I think it's nonsense. It is a football play. The QB sneak like that has been in the game forever. Now you're just pushing guys behind him. It's not that egregious. And I'm glad it didn't ultimately get banned.
Look, I saw the Jaguars stop that play twice. And if the stinky Jaguars from last year can do it, anybody should be able to do it.
I agree. I'm with you. All right, let's get into this mailbag here. We got a couple Patriots questions we can throw around here before we get out of here. And the first one is from John Hamley, and it is, how worried should fans be about Drake Maye's OTA practice? Now, JP, for a little context here, if you hadn't already seen, the Patriots 2025 season is over because Drake Maye threw 4 interceptions yesterday at the open OTA, the media open OTA practice. Obviously, it's difficult to, I don't want to say not completely blame him because, a couple bad decisions that he had, but it's one practice, it's one day, it's OTAs. What are your thoughts on a tough practice like this? And I guess I'll ask you.
You want to break down the practice? You want to break down the interceptions first for more context?
Yeah, sure, Taylor. I'll give it to you to kind of to give it the floor to him.
And then we'll just open it up to like, how do you feel about bad days in training camp for quarterbacks?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the interceptions was, it looked like Gonzalez might have peeled off an underneath assignment and kind of went all the way back downfield. So that one was pretty sick. It was Gonzo being a reigning All-Pro. There was one that reminded me of college Drake Maye. You know how some of his throws over the middle, like they can be dots, and some just kind of sail on him? Mm-hmm. There was one of those where he tried to throw over the middle to a tight end, and it went right to Del Pettis. And then there was one that Demario Douglas said it was a roll drill, and that Drake didn't see that Gonzalez was maybe coming down. He stopped. Drake thought he was going to break out. Then it turned into a pick. And then there was like one where was that the deflection? It was the one that got tipped and got picked off. So there were moments where it's like, yes, miscommunication on Drake, bad sale. And then the other two were kind of like, either it happens or just a great defensive play. But in general, when these things happen, if Drake Maye had thrown 4 interceptions and they had been bad, relative to what we'd seen from him last year, how would you have felt about that kind of performance this early in OTAs?
I'm not too worried about it. I think the biggest thing with OTAs, like, you would much rather make the mistakes now than in the actual games. I'm fine with them making mistakes in OTAs in practice because they're seeing what they can do. This is the time to go and just try stuff. I think we put too much stock in interceptions and OTAs, especially because they are padless. They are playing touch football. It is 7-on-7. I think everybody just kind of needs to relax and provide the context. Like you said, but this is the opening of OTAs. This is not going to be the final product for what the Patriots put out there before the regular season starts. There's so much more time and so much more. There needs to be more of a rapport. And you get that through just reps and through practice. So there's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. Everybody needs to relax a little bit with training camp, OTA, interceptions. If it pops up during the regular season constantly with him missing guys or just not being on the same page, then you can start to be a little concerned. But right now, it's fine. It is one bad practice. Everybody has one.
Imagine if practices were open and the firestorms they would create every single day. It's like they made a mistake in practice.
Oh goodness, we would if every practice was open, we would see the nastiest training camp clips. Those will get put into like Twitter, like you highlight lowlights, and everybody uses it in like you're gonna see like
Tyler Shaw combine throw, or it just like put it on repeat.
We're gonna see all the content aggregators putting it in like a training camp video and be like, "Is this the guy that you had as QB1 or something?" And it just gets really stupid.
So I want to ask you then about that and content aggregators and your Jaguars, because there was a lot of Travis Hunter clips from the Dove Kleinmans of the world where maybe his routes don't look as precise as we thought they were, and etc. Now, all of the kidding on that aside, what has gone on with Travis so far in Jacksonville? Because I haven't really heard too much. Are they using him more on offense, more on defense? What has come out of Jags camp as far as what's going on with Travis so far?
For a large majority, he has been on the offensive side of the ball, which I think Liam Cohen and James Gladstone said he would start on offense and then they would continue to teach him on defense, which is actually the opposite of what they did at Colorado, where they started him on defense, gave him the defensive playbook, and then it's like, hey, here's what route you're running. Go in there and do what he does. And I think that's where you start to see some of we all saw the route that got like posted everywhere. It's the same as like when Jamar Chase was dropping all those passes in the preseason and everybody made it into a big thing. With Travis Hunter, we have to remember that he has probably only spent like 30, maybe 40% of his time in practice as a receiver, getting precise route running tips and drills to improve on his craft as a receiver. I think that was his biggest thing coming out when you looked at him as a receiver, was some of the detail of being like a top flight receiver wasn't there. And that's because he also had to go and be the best corner in the country. So everything is blown out of proportion in the first week of OTAs. And I also think we forgot so quickly that he was playing receiver and corner at Colorado. So you're not going to see a super refined route runner right now, but that's what practice is for. That's what you get around NFL people for.
Like at this stage in his career, Travis Hunter is at it's kind of like OTAs where all the bad stuff you should take with a grain of salt because the goal is to correct it. But when he shows the flashes and it's like, all right, maybe Trevor Lawrence throws to him in double coverage, he's going to go up and make a ridiculous catch. It's like, that's what you want to lock in on a little bit more because that's stuff that he can even do. Now, obviously, you want to replicate the good, minimize the bad. And like you said with the Patriots, it's so early. The mistakes they make right now are supposed to be there because they are not finished products. But I'm still so excited. I can't wait to see what that receiving core looks like. And year two of Brian Thomas and his maturation as a receiver.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I just hope that people take some of the Travis Hunter stuff with a grain of salt because we have to remember that this kid wasn't playing exclusively receiver in college. He had to go be a corner. He had to go be CB1. He was in this draft class. He was CB1 and wide receiver 1. So much of that uniqueness. The downside of that is you got to spend a lot of time at both spots. So this is the time, like you said, to figure out what you're doing wrong and get the reps out to go and fix it, because you're not going to go and fix reps that you're wrong in the middle of the season.
Speaking on wide receivers, next question here in the mailbag from K. Roberts. And JP, we mentioned it earlier, but you had sort of said that New England needs speed at wide receiver. They got some of that in the draft, but now looking at this, it's not really a finished product, but their 90-man roster right now heading into the month of June. What do you think is still the number one need the Patriots have as a team overall? And if you need a second, Taylor, you can answer as well, but that we'll kind of put this on the table.
JP, you got it?
I still think that the receiver room is a little bit unproven outside of Stephon Diggs, which is fine. They went into last year being an unproven young receiver room, and for the most part left 2024 as an unproven young receiver room. I think you need to see a step forward from Jalen Polk. You would hopefully like to see Javon Baker have a bit more of an impact on the outside specifically, so you can allow Polk to do sort of the movement stuff. You can allow Kyle Williams not to always have to create separation against press coverage in the NFL because it's a lot different than playing in college. I think that if you can get one of those young guys to consistently step up and become that number one, so Stephon Diggs, like I said, can age gracefully into a 1B or a wide receiver 2, which is where he's at in the stage of career. It's fine that he's aging gracefully into that, but you got to have somebody step up and be the 1A. So I think the receiver room is still unproven, and I wonder what the offensive line combination is going to be that they roll with throughout the season.
Yeah, I got to steal it. It's got to be receiver because you think, okay, it's probably premium positions is where you want to add because they don't have a glaring hole anywhere. You got your left tackle. You got plenty of pass rushers with Barmore, Keon White, Milton Williams, Braden Swinson. Like, you should be good there. You don't need someone to replace Harold Landry, but you don't have that absolute proven alpha where even if Kyle Williams like hits his ceiling, he's still not the guy that you want to look to in every major passing situation because he does have his deficiencies. And if they did have a receiver who just was more well-rounded, had proven in the NFL that he can be the guy where, it's 3rd and 5, I don't really care what the defensive look is, I'm getting you a one-on-one matchup and I'm throwing to you no matter what the look is. That is what I think would give people the confidence to be like, oh, this receiving core or this Patriots team is going to be nasty, because even if the offensive line has some names that you haven't really heard before, you would at least have Kyle Williams plus Stephon Diggs plus the alpha who they're going to be able to get open against different coverages and be reliable for Drake Maye where he doesn't have to hold on to the ball.
Yeah, if we're putting it in basketball terms, the Patriots right now have a bunch of guys who win shooting jumpers off of screens. They have a bunch of guys who run around, do like the Klay Thompson thing, where you run off screen, set your feet jumper. They do a lot of backdoor cuts. That's how they get open. That's how they make their game off of designer looks to specifically get them open. That is great until the fourth quarter, until you need somebody to go and get you a bucket, regardless of the coverage you throw at them. I think they still need that kind of receiver. It's yet to be seen if Stephon Diggs can do that at age 30, 31, coming off of a torn ACL. The odds are that he might not get back to that level.
Right.
But you need somebody who can be that for your young quarterback. It could be anybody in the receiving corps. It could be Kyle Williams. It could be Hunter Henry. It could be anybody that they really trust. And I think Hunter Henry kind of developed that rapport with Drake Maye throughout the season. And with hopefully how much 12 personnel that Josh McDaniels is going to run, he's going to have much more of a factor in the passing game.
Absolutely.
So I want to throw then Javon Baker into this mix as well, because we talked about receiver there, obviously, and someone who needs to be that guy. Do you think there's a chance that Javon Baker has a year 2 leap and could become that sort of playmaking X, or is he a lost cause? And I hate to say that because he's going to get a chance. We haven't seen enough of him. Yesterday, for example, JP, he caught a nice back shoulder throw from Drake Maye with Christian Gonzalez on him in coverage. So he did flash a bit yesterday. He didn't get a ton of reps with, that starting quote unquote offense. But what are your thoughts on Javon Baker? Not just now, but what did you like about him last year? And do you think he's still a high enough caliber player that he can play in the league?
So coming out of UCF, I was a big fan of Javon Baker. I thought that he was able to win on go balls, deep passes down the field, regardless of his size. I think he's around 6 feet, 6'1", but he's able to go up and get passes with physicality and the ability to box out. He really reminded me a lot of Michael Gallup coming out of Colorado State and what the best of Michael Gallup was in Dallas. The problem with that is it's really hard winning on 50-50 passes in the NFL, especially when you're not a super 6'6" target, so it's hard to win in contested catch situations because you can't just physically dunk on every corner in the NFL unless you're Jamar Chase, who did that immediately. So I think for him, it's finding more things to add to his game. I think he sort of missed that separation that he could build in the intermediate areas of the field. If he could create a little bit more separation downfield to give him another club in the golf bag when he gets targets downfield, I think that would really help him out a lot. But I still have hope. I think that the Patriots still do need a guy on the outside who can win as their X receiver. So I'm hoping it can be Javon Baker, but there are some things that are kind of it's going to be challenging for him because of what he does best and how the NFL defends that.
Fantastic points. I still think that for Javon, more than talent, it's just the mental side. Like last year, every single time he came up with Van Pelt, and Van Pelt was very honest with us about his player evaluations. With Javon, it's like, I need to know he's going to line up in the right place. I need to know he's just going to do what he's supposed to be doing on a down-to-down basis. And then we saw, even once he earned snaps, he was missing blocks, like running routes when he's supposed to be blocking at the point of attack, and it's costing them touchdowns. So that's the kind of thing where, like, in a Josh McDaniels offense, he's, I think, not dumbing it down, he's watering it down, I think, or just changing it in a way that it's more digestible for an offense full of guys where you have the Kendrick Bournes and the Hunter Henrys, but you have a quarterback and a lot of young guys who should contribute that have never been in this offense before. So it is going to be easier to digest, but at the same time, Javon's going to have to lock in and be able to be someone who's reliable. And even like yesterday, we actually saw him. Drake Maye still has trust in his guy, and he hit him on a back shoulder ball against Christian Gonzalez. Like those kinds of moments, it's like, yes, like get your opportunity and maximize them. But also when it's the little details and it's all right, just go through your run assignments at like half speed, still showing that he knows what to do. If he can do that, he has too much talent relative to the rest of this receiving core to be someone where you're like, we'll rotate him. Like you want him on the field, but it starts with being someone where it's like, okay, we don't have to worry that Javon's going to do his job. And if he can check that box, the rest of it, I think, is going to follow through in an offense with Josh McDaniels, who does such a good job of maximizing his guys.
I want to close it out with this one. I'm trying to pull up the question on my second screen because it was very long, and I tried to shorten it on here because it wouldn't fit character-wise. So I can't get the asker's name out there right now. But basically, the gist of it is, how do we feel about Josh McDaniels unlocking Drake Maye, and then throughout the season, as Drake Maye kind of understands the playbook, has a more comprehensive knowledge of what they want to do, how can he then unlock Josh McDaniels and turn this offense into a really great scheme? JP, I want to start with you and just what you know about McDaniels, Drake Maye, and kind of how this cohesive relationship between the two can work.
So I think the biggest thing that McDaniels will have with Drake Maye is somebody who can attack all three levels of the field with confidence, arm aggression, and accuracy. I think that's the biggest thing. He can hit the downfield throws, like you said, the back shoulder to Javon Baker. You think of all the Kayshon Boutte throws at the end of the year where he's putting it over the shoulder into a bucket. I think that's something that McDaniels knows right now that Drake Maye can do. I also think that Drake Maye also showed a lot of growth and a lot of advancement in terms of pocket management and kind of mitigating all the pressure that he saw. We're like, yeah, he was still getting hit, but he wasn't turning those into sacks. He wasn't turning those into chaotic plays. Those would be incompletions, or he would scramble. And I think that's a great sign for a young quarterback who knows how to deal.
Whoops.
It was him? Okay, I didn't know if it was me.
No, I'm here. All
right, that's fine. Well, Taylor, until we get JP back, we'll close him out, see if he can re-come in. And how do you feel about this cohesive Josh McDaniels, Drake Maye, and how they can kind of work together?
Yeah, to kind of build on where I feel like JP was starting to go, just the confidence to go downfield. Because when you watch Josh McDaniels' offense, when he was with the Patriots with Mac Jones, when he was with the Raiders, like there were so many downfield opportunities that his quarterback couldn't or wouldn't take advantage of. And Drake is not that guy. Where yesterday, the post to Boutte that JP mentioned, we saw one of those yesterday, dropped it in the bucket, and he couldn't catch it. I was just adding to your point. Literally, the Boutte throw that you mentioned, the post, Drake threw one yesterday, right in the bucket, and Boutte wasn't able to capitalize. So just keep going because I think you were cooking.
Yeah, I think with what McDaniels can do is it's also sort of a development on where the NFL is going, getting into bigger personnel and letting Drake Maye attack downfield off of that. It's something that I actually was sort of excited for what Alex Van Pelt would hopefully bring to the Patriots last year, because the Browns did a lot of it with Joe Flacco as their quarterback, where they just like, hey man, we're gonna line up in 12 personnel, we're gonna run Yankee, we're gonna post and over behind it. Just throw whichever one you feel like. So I think that's something that Maye can absolutely help with what McDaniels wants, because the last time we saw Josh McDaniels' offense, he's had too many risk-averse quarterbacks. And I think that's something Maye is so supremely talented and wants to hit all these deep passes. He wants to attack downfield, but he also knows that he can mitigate some of the pressure and hit some of the easy stuff. So I think as the season goes on, you're going to see McDaniels open up a lot more of the quick game, the intermediate stuff. As we already know, Drake May can hit the deep ball, but now it's about getting the quick game, getting the consistency with the footwork and the accuracy underneath and intermediate to follow behind it. Because when you watch him, his eyes are in the right place, body's in the right place. It's just about the footwork. And I think that's something that stood out when he was at North Carolina, stood out when he was in his first year in New England. But with Josh McDaniels, you're going to get a whole lot more structure to this offense. And you're going to be able to help, I'm not going to say mask or hide a quarterback, because I think this is going to be around what Drake May does best. But with all the heavier personnel, with all the bigger looks, you can throw downfield out of that. And I think that's something that they will be able to do immediately.
And also, like, and I know I can be optimistic. There are certain levels of praise I don't heap on people because I think it's ridiculous. I genuinely think that Josh, if he sticks around for most, if not all, of Drake's career, that's a potential like Hall of Fame quarterback that you've gotten him, because he's got the intelligence, he's got the leadership, he's got all the physical tools, not just as a passer, but as a runner. One thing we don't really talk about, I think nearly enough, is the fact that Josh took Cam Newton, completely overhauled the offense, and it worked. Like, we're not
that offense was crazy.
Bro, it was fun. I spent like a month just going over like all of their successful plays. And it's something we had seen flashes of running stuff with Jacoby Brissett, but it was not the same. Like, it was a completely different playbook. And it's not like the Matt Patricia experiment where, oh, we want to be outside zone, but we're not going to listen to players who are in a Shanahanian system. McDaniels clearly listened to Cam, and he had some part in it because of how efficient they were running it. So the fact that he's now got a quarterback who can run and take advantage of all those shots that he schemes up beautifully and his quarterbacks just have not been able to connect on, literally the sky is the limit. But on top of that, like, you can
the ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is the roof. And even more than that, like, we talked about all the good. Let's talk about the bad that we saw from Drake May and how McDaniels can help with that. Like, you talked about, the footwork is a big part of it, but then the decision-making, like, it wasn't nearly as bad as in college. I think Drake did a much better job minimizing the, like, oh God, what are you thinking plays? But you have like the sack against Zach Sealer where he's trying to like hit the ball away and it gets knocked out. Times where he holds onto the ball and he just needs to kind of throw faster, or even times where like against all-out blitz looks, it seemed like he didn't have any really good answers sometimes. Like you mentioned, that structure, Josh is going to give him the answers, and he's going to have Vrabel as another layer, like what Brady had with Belichick, of someone who is tuned into situational football. And through years of working together, he's going to learn, this is what you do in the situation, this is what you don't. And not just on the chalkboard. When it happens in the game, he's going to go to the sideline and he's going to hear from his coaches, like, we cannot do that. Like, you can't throw to Demario Douglas over the middle in that situation when you have a wide open check down and we're just trying to like move the ball downfield. Like, check down, then get your home run. So I think both McDaniel's ability to unlock his talents, but also mitigate the bad parts of Drake's game that we've maybe seen crop up, that's the combination where it's just like why I have so much confidence in this team, because the supporting cast is important, but there's just not a whole lot you can't do with Drake and an offensive coordinator with so much experience at a very high level.
You hit on it a little bit with Drake May's running ability, and that's something that Mike Vrabel also had in Tennessee. When you think of this Tennessee offense, you think of Derrick Henry hit you in the face, A.J. Brown over the middle, which is great. But Ryan Tannehill also was a very good runner, and they designed run stuff for him. So I think a lot of this is Vrabel wanting to add Drake May as a runner. But like you said, masking some of the things that he can't do right now and maximizing the things that he can do, and then just consistently sprinkling in the stuff that he can't do into the offense as he continues to grow, is where you're going to see a whole lot of the offense open up. And you're going to see a little bit more of the offense become layered. You're going to see it become a little bit more, instead of being deep ball, no ball, it's okay, we might not have this. We'll throw the check down. We'll live to see another day. So I'm excited to see it, largely because I think Josh McDaniels' offense, when he's only calling the offense, is coming back at a good time, because everybody's playing like 270-pound defensive tackles. So it's really fun to play all the light box stuff and have a safety come in and fill in the run gap late in the snap. It's all fun and games until your 320-pound guard is hitting a 200-pound safety. And then that's where McDaniels and the Patriots can win. You actually clipped the Brady to Gronk, the
Yeah.
off play action over the middle. It's in my head. Like, that is the Brady and Gronk play. That is something that I think the Patriots can really be effective at this season because of how much they're going to hammer teams up the middle in the run game.
Exciting stuff. You got me fired up for Drake May and Josh McDaniels, even more so than I already was, especially after yesterday's 4 interception day. So I agree. Throw that in the trash. Get more excited for what these two can build, not just on the field at media access OTAs where there's a couple INTs, but also what they can do in the classroom. So JP, super fun as always having you on the pod. Before we get you out of here, just please do us a favor and let all our fans know where they can find you and what you got coming up. Because as I've already said a couple times, JP does great work, or all across the NFL.
Yeah, so you can find me at SB Nation. I am a football writer, which means anywhere there's football being played, I'm probably there talking about it. Right now, we are going on to 2026. We're doing early 2026 draft prospect scouting, just kind of filling out some of the getting a little early stuff going, and we're kind of watching 2024 NFL tape in between. So just follow on social media, see what I'm doing, see where I'm going, post some really cool clips. But we'll definitely be checking out the Drake May Patriots sometime in the near future.
We'll give you the platform to talk about as much as you want. Hopefully they're good this year so I can invite my friends. I didn't want to burn bridges by asking people to talk about shitty football.
Look, man, I've talked so much bad football. I'm here for the good, bad, and in between.
Well, go Jags as always. Appreciate you. I'm a Travis Hunter guy through and through, so we have that going for you with the Jaguars connection as well. But thank you guys all, obviously, for joining us here on Patriots Daily. Rate, review, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass channel. Myself and Taylor will be back as we always are later on this week on Patriots Daily. So keep it here for all of your Patriots coverage. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you very soon. Peace out, everyone.